if we look back at our founding fathers, they had a great sense of like, yes, we are stepping into the void. And what gave them the courage to do that? It was faith. So our country was built upon ideologies that connected us with God.
Welcome to the Up Your Average podcast, where Keith and Doug give no-nonsense advice to level up your life. So buckle up and listen closely to Up Your Average.
Hey, good morning. Happy Independence Day to everybody. To me, Independence Day is kind of like summertime's Thanksgiving, and I've got a grateful heart this morning. Good to see you guys.
It's not just Independence Day, it's 250.
Boom.
Can I throw an idea bomb out to you, Doug?
Let's hear it.
So our friend Stan is 84, and that means he's lived through 1/3 of this 250. Isn't that crazy?
That's pretty cool. Well, I was thinking 100 years ago. I was born in 75. And I was thinking 100 years before I was born, it was Crazy Horse and Custer's Last Stand. And that makes me feel like really old and a part of this.
Well, we're honored to have our friend Sabin with us, and Sabin is a rock star from our vantage point. We're thrilled by his friendship, We're thrilled by his passion, and thrilled by his skills, really, that have developed over many years. Sabin, when you think about 250 years in your own experience, what jumps out at you in thinking about that?
Well, the very word independence is, I think, what America stands for on not only a big picture like the country, but also on an individual basis. Independence of what you wish to do with your life. That's what comes to me, and it's something to celebrate and cherish and steward forward.
The Indianapolis Star, and I don't read it so much because you can't find it as much as you used to, but they have, I think as long as I can remember, a verse on the top of it says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom and liberty and freedom. It's probably hard for our friends that are watching to really appreciate it if they haven't traveled other places where that's not just a given.
Yeah. I was just in London last week, and London is a general populace, 15 million people, incredibly dense population, traffic jams all over, and there's just this general sense of oppression that you sense there. It's so hard to do anything, and just to get across town for 2-3 miles, it might take an hour. And there are video cameras all over the place. You're being watched for everything you do. It's not the way I'd want to live.
No, freedom.
I think that verse that you said, Keith, that's out front of a shoe store here in Warsaw, or North Webster, Indiana. And I love that verse because you could take that verse anywhere in the world, or at any time in the world with whatever's going on. Or maybe you're living in Indiana and your life just is hard right now. Well, that verse applies to you too.
There's something about freedom that it requires some individual responsibility, and there's a temptation, I think, to yield to rules and regulations rather than to jump into freedom, because somebody will tell you what you should do, but with freedom, you can do whatever. And that motivates me. And Sabin, what I wanted to ask you, I was thinking, I think I told you I listened to your interview 10 times. It might have been closer to 20. But one thing kept jumping out at me because I thought maybe I'd be a pro basketball player in the recesses of my juvenile mind. And it wasn't a realistic thing. But sometimes as dads, we have to speak hard questions to people. And you said, when you called your dad, he said, how long is this going to last? And I think we're up over 40 years, but I think how long is this going to last can be a motivator to how to spend my time today. Like if I'm playing a video game today, how long is this going to last, right? Like it's not going to bring fulfillment lasting like a piano or a sculpture will. So whatever happened with that question? How long is this going to last?
Well, that was the first day I was working in a wood shop, and I called my dad and told him I didn't, like, ask him. I said, "Dad, I'm going to go to art school." And his response was, "How long is this gonna last?" That was 1982, and, seems like it's been it's my meaning, it's my purpose of my being. And I just wanna go back to the idea of freedom, and free will, because I think that's the conversation of this moment with the celebration of that 250-year moment. This is not for everybody. It takes courage because what is it? Let's define first off, what does freedom mean? Freedom means that you have the agency to choose. That's it. Choose what you will do with the gift that God has given you of life. And that means that you are responsible, and then you have to take care of yourself, not someone else. So we're in a moment, and I think this moment is really critical that we go the right road at this fork in the road, and not go into a place where, like what I saw in London, where you hand over your freedoms to a larger entity, being bureaucracy and the government, and they make those decisions for you. Now, a lot of people want to be taken care of because then you don't have to think about, what do I have to do today? I'm being told what to do today.
Mm.
I am not that sort of person. I'm an artist. Artists think outside the box. We're not herd people. I don't care personally if people disagree with me. We live external to society in a way. I don't collect a paycheck every Friday. I don't have a boss. And so I made a choice. And I think in some ways, if we look back at our founding fathers, they had a great sense of, like, yes, we are stepping into the void. And what gave them the courage to do that? It was faith. So our country was built upon ideologies that connected us with God. And that's something that has been, put to the side. History's been rewritten. God is incredibly important in having freedom, because you need something to hold you and anchor you and moor you to the sacred, something bigger than yourself, so that you are not a nihilist, a living alone in society. And that is what we are actually celebrating today.
One
I
of the
was
things Keith talks about all the time is courage. And Keith, that's a favorite subject of yours, right? Is, where does courage come from? And then how do you have the guts to either say, hey, I need some help, or I'm stuck here, or to take a step forward? And so the courage does have to start with something outside of yourself.
The thing I was pondering, I put a lot of prep time into just thinking about where our conversation would go. And I had a conversation with a 80 some odd year old great grandma this week, and she was telling me that her 12-year-old told her, Henry told her that he was atheist. He didn't believe in God. And I've heard you say in the past, Sabin, that there are no atheists in the foxhole.
Mhm.
And I think maybe some of the future is helping those youngsters even understand that there is a God, and that God really thinks you're a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I did this project, World War I Memorial in DC. It was 9.5-year project, a lot of figures, 38 figures, 60 feet long. And I want to say I was spiritual before that project. But then I came into a place that was really hard. Um, and uh, I guess you would call it my faith grew into like actually connecting with God on a much deeper basis. And I think it's very hard for a kid to say, yeah, I believe in God. Because kids don't have the experience of life yet, and they haven't. Being a kid is not necessarily easy. You have your own personal challenges and identity challenges. It's very um, stressful. I remember being a teenager. It's one of the hardest, most horrible moments of my life. And um, it, who you are surrounded by is critical. So one of the things that I had I'm not straying from the God thing, but I had community, and community came through sports, and sports came through be your best version. So there are moments that you may not believe in something larger than yourself, but the thing is you are not alone, and so you need to move towards things that hold you and bind you in a larger group, because we're not meant to operate alone like Robinson Crusoe on a desert island. That's not us. We're meant to be in families, and if your family doesn't work for you, which oftentimes is the case because they don't understand what you're going through as a child or a young man or young woman, you need to have something that binds you. And I found sports were amazing because you engage in a team, you're part of something, you're all moving forward towards the same goal. And that's I think something we want to remember as a country. We're moving together as one. We're all Americans. All this woke nonsense is destructive because what? It's divisive. It splits us apart, and then it does this, and it creates conflict rather than doing this. So if you were to take an X-ray of everybody, we'd all have the same skeleton. If you were to cut somebody, we'd all have the same red blood. And the first thing is we are human beings, and human beings, and that's the thing that's not defined. That's where you start.
I've said a number of times, Sabin, that growing up in the 60s and 70s, I think I was very fortunate. And one of the things that to me seems to have reduced some of this connectivity and community was the advent of the air conditioner. Because when I was growing up, there wasn't central air so much, and you could hear a lot of the communication that was going on. People didn't go into the air conditioning as much; they were outside a lot more, and it is really challenging for people to find that connectedness today more than I can remember, because let's pull in the garage door, look in the garage, shut the garage door, and then we don't know who's living right next to us. And so how would you encourage somebody, say they're not athletic, how would you, as you're thinking about, how would you encourage a 10-year-old to get connected today in the culture in a way that maybe isn't even athletics?
The biggest element here is finding what excites you, what gives you a spark. And unfortunately, the phone is always in our hand. So in some ways, this requires a lot of personal self-awareness. And let's go back to the same thing that we talked about before. Um, Agency and self-responsibility are not taught in the schools. Self-responsibility means nobody is going to come and save you. Nobody is going to take care of you. Now, your parents may take care of you to a certain point, but ultimately, you are responsible for yourself. And so you need to make some decisions on what do I actually like? And so you need to gravitate towards those things and find like-minded people. And I think the thing is, you don't want to find like-minded people that are moving towards negative values of destruction and protest. You want to move towards people that are building things, constructing things. Those are the two. It's a dichotomy of these two separates. Moving towards positivity, it means we are creators because we're made in God's image. So we want to build things. And that doesn't only mean building houses, building sculptures. It also means building businesses, building your own life. not destroying. Destroying and protesting is about tearing down. And that does not serve you ultimately, because if you tear things down, you will have a void. You need to figure out what to do in that void. And that's what I'm seeing today. It's like ton of protests, but no concept of like creation.
There's a saying, as a man thinks, so he is. And so what I hear you saying is that you have the agency to set your mind on being a creator, and being a creator could protest the things you don't like by creating a better solution.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. You're not just tearing down to tear down. It's okay. So I tear down modern art. I think it's a scam. I think it's, been running way too long for 100 years. And I think it's like redundant. And so I'm going to like say no, and I'm going to protest that. But in my protest, I'm going to build something that is an example of where we should be going. That's exactly spot on what you're implying, Keith.
I took my oldest on a trip to New York City when she graduated from high school, and she wanted to go to all the museums. And I think until you and I have started talking, I didn't understand why I was so angry. And I think I like art, but I don't think I knew that I liked art based on the art that I was seeing. And I don't remember, but there was a famous musician's wife that had 3 piles of dirt in one of those museums. And then there was some place that had like 3 claws hanging. And I walked out of the room angry that I paid money to go see that. And I don't think I knew that I liked art, but I think I do like art. But I think probably what you're describing is why I was angry with that art.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really unfortunate in a big way. I grew up in Italy, so I was surrounded by visual beauty, the visual splendor, and then came back to the United States when I was 3. So it was this kind of shocking moment. And I came back to this country. It was 66. And New York City was in the middle of, receiving the people that went to Vietnam. And so I was surrounded by a lot of junkies in the middle of the street, derelicts, just a lot of ugliness, a lot of violence, a lot of protest, a lot of destruction. And so you oppose this, and that's to where I left the traditional. But I want to say, going back to our country in the 250th, we're incredibly lucky because nowhere else in the world do you have the opportunity that you have here. The art, if you're looking at it, a lot of this modern art stuff is been played forward because it's a status quo that's held in place by museums and critics and schools and galleries. And there's a reason, because they don't care about like what is the message of the medium or the form or the art. What's the message of the form? It's kind of subversive, because you look at something and there's no sense of like it showing you what you can be and where you should go with your life. So I think maybe what it pissed you off, Keith, you looked at that art and you were like, why the hell would I want to go there? That's like a dump. That's like, I already live in the world is like a dump, and art's not part of the world. It's more of an external philosophy. It's a visual philosophy that connects with us and shows us what is possible. And I think that schools are doing a very bad job of showing us as citizens what is possible for this country, and teaching its young children and college kids, really tear it down, protest. This is a fascist regime. This is like complete BS. It's built upon principles and values from the Constitution and Declaration of Independence that were written by 20-year-olds that were incredibly rebellious. And this is not what's taught in school. And the other thing I want to say, it's incredibly radical these days and rebellious to actually believe in God. So maybe I'd just put it out there to some of the younger people listening that, you can be really rebellious if you start to look at, like, what is the opposite that society is teaching you today, and it's about faith. And you know what ultimately that is? Empowerment. Because without that form underneath you, you don't have the power that you think you do alone. You can't solve your problems and what you wanna do with your life alone as easily as if you have this support system. So that's my spiel.
You're making me laugh because I don't think I'm too I think I have a long fuse, but I think the reason that I came to befriend you was I heard that your unveiling of your memorial in DC was happening. So we drove all the way out there, and the bureaucracy wouldn't let us see the memorial. And when I was asking the bureaucracy, well, when can I see it? They're like, well, 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. Like they couldn't care less that I drove across the country to see it. They were indifferent. And I could envision, like I remember seeing pictures of the USSR, and the people just had this downtrodden look on their face, and they're just used to living that way.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and my wife was watching me as they're going through the whole ceremony and unveiling it. And I've kept telling her I am going to see that memorial tonight, and she's like, and she's a rule keeper, so she's like, I don't know about that, and I'm like, I guarantee you, I'm going to see that before I leave the city. So I just found that really interesting, is that you're trying to push freedom and independence, and the system for which you're working within, they're not letting anybody, they're letting just the bureaucrats see the masterpiece that you made. And I just found all that hilarious.
It is. It is.
Of all these great people, because they are people that you've been sculpting, is there one that really inspires you in your life today? Like, are these real people that you're sculpting? Are they collections of stories? Or tell me about the people and how they inspire you, and maybe how they would even inspire a younger version of you.
Um, I had a switch in my life. It was like up to the World War I memorial, which is from 1982 to like 2015. I was sculpting ideas that looked like very Greco-Roman, very classical figures, and they were ideas, um, very esoteric. Not something that everybody would understand. And it was kind of like a training process of like sculpting from life and taking a year, literally over 2,000 hours per sculpture, and then selling those as multiples in bronze. Well, what happened was I got the World War I memorial, and I think this is a great question you asked me. What happened was I didn't have to just think about myself, because working in the studio before that, I was just, okay, I'm making my art, and now I'm going to pitch it to people. But now all of a sudden I get a project. It's a national memorial, and now you're not making it just for yourself, because if you do something esoteric, nobody's going to get it, and then you massive fail. And what happened was I had to start thinking about other people externally to me, and then how could I tell a story that they would get? And now the engagement changes because you're doing it externally to just yourself. And this is, again, it's the connection, the connectivity that I'm talking about. That's an amazing thing, that project taught me so much about, like, tell a story, have a narrative that an eighth grader is going to get. And then in that process, I had to go get, models. And then I got veterans as models. And then all of a sudden I get more information about, like, wow, those people went through a really different life than I did. And it's incredibly horrible. It's like suicide, um, losing their friends right next to them. And they still come back and put themselves back together in reentry. It's reentry for military is not something that they are trained to do. They have to figure it out on their own. And so these men that posed for me, they're the actual faces on the World War I memorial. That was a huge step for me going into, like, my best version as an artist. And I think telling a story that connects you to audiences that you wouldn't have even thought about. Like, I went back there this year, and there was, like, school bus after school bus of kids, like, all day long, 100, 200 kids just showing up, and my wife loves running up to people, "Hey, you like the piece? I know who made it. It's him." Like,
How
yeah,
cool is that?
yeah, well, sort of, but the 10th time, it gets a little tiring.
No, I like your wife's style. That's great.
Yeah, but she so
And so, Sabin, like, is there someone that in the quietness of your piano playing or your bicycle riding, you've been thinking, man, I'd really like to create a version of this person? Where do you need courage to create that?
the
Who is it?
the version that I actually have a new project that came on deck last week. I'm really
Yeah.
enthusiastic about this. I'm gonna tell you about this project. We haven't gone to contract yet, but this is the first time I've talked about it publicly. Um,
Let's go.
Somebody at West Point called me, and he asked to do a monument to global war on terror, and it's the first time in, like, my whole career I got an email from someone that actually gave me an amazing idea. And this answers your question, like, who do I want to sculpt? So the idea was a modern day soldier and then another figure, which is a continental soldier. And the continental soldier is history. And it's all the same person. The person is the same. The accoutrements have changed. The guns, the boots, um, the uniforms have changed, but the people are the same. And so this is a fascinating project because this guy has served, and he's got 4 kids that serve, and it's going to West Point. In West Point, there is great honor in serving your country, and we're returning to the same concept, in service of and belonging to something bigger than yourself. That is what that is what is so incredible about our country in many ways. Do you know that how few people actually were part of the Revolutionary War, the percentages? It's very, very small. And those are the outliers. Those are the people that stepped into the void. And that's what this project is about, how incredible our history is. So that's who I want to sculpt. That is the person that I want to sculpt. It's not
Thanks for
only
sharing that.
yeah, it's not only a human being, but it's a story that I can communicate with others, and that's what excites me today. It's the connection, so that I'm not sculpting just to make my craft. I'm making something that connects to people and passes story and history along. Ultimately, that's a very building type movement, and it's very positive. So I'm trying to do something that leaves this planet better than when I came in on it.
The first soldier that came to mind when you were saying that, Sabin, was young King David before he was a king, when he went to fight Goliath, and all the naysayers told him, "Get out of here! You're not man enough." And it kind of goes into the idea that what we're talking about is that you can be the little kid that goes to the front line and changes your world. And man, I love that idea that one man can change the world, and like you're changing the world with your art and your attitude and your encouragement. It's a big deal.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I I I don't think my life has been easy by any stretch of the imagination, because I spent, a long time just working on my craft and trying to get a product that would look really amazing, that would kind of be at the same level that Western civilization carried for, the great art of the Renaissance or Greeks and the Romans. And so I took 35 years to get to that level, and I feel like it's just I wanna just say, I don't think it's talent, I think it's perseverance, and perseverance has to do with, like, and success has to do with, like, how do you manage problems when you get knocked down on your butt? It's like, how do you rise to the occasion and get back on a horse? And I think that's the success thing. It's not like giving up, because when you give up, you've actually handed over your power, and you're saying you're letting You're putting a white flag up and you're saying, I am defeated. And I think you can fail thousands of times. And I do ultimately fail all the time in the studio every day and come back the next day and give it another roll. And I think that's really important.
We interviewed Dr. Lee Warren a few weeks ago, and it was a conversation about thinking better and the importance of that. And it drives me to the verse in 1 Corinthians 13. It says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. And when I became a man, I put away childish things. And when I started pondering that verse, we have 5 kids, so I've had a lot of experience with children. And they when I speak like a child says whatever they want. They just say whatever comes out of their mind. And a child, when I think like a child, they don't really think much. They just, whatever hits their mind, that they assume that's their thought. And it says, when I was a child, I reasoned like a child. And a child doesn't, reasoning in my way of looking at it is I take a thought, I look at it and say, is this a reasonable thought, or what do I do with it? And so I throw all that out there to say that I think a challenge to our culture today is it takes coping skills, it takes perseverance, it takes adversity to be able to reason through a situation and not just throw in the towel.
Yeah, there's common sense. And I think a lot of the look, I think schools are not doing our kids a favor. They're not teaching them exactly what you said. It's what are the coping skills to deal with being knocked down on your butt and then getting back up? So what's happening is the schools are teaching this victim oppressor mentality. Does that really help you? Does that really help you? It's like, no, it doesn't. And as an artist, it's like I could absolutely come up with 1,000 oppressors of why my art shouldn't have succeeded and I couldn't have got past the freaking gatekeepers of modern art. It's like, yeah, total victim mentality if I wanted to. What good was it going to do me? It was like, figure out the problem and get through the crack in the door. The gallery systems wouldn't take me. The museums wouldn't take me. All the schools said that stuff that I sculpted was like old fashioned. It's like old white men. It doesn't mean anything anymore. And it's like, what would have happened if I listened to that? And I was like, how do I break through the system? And so I applied for, a National Memorial. There's always a way. And this is the coping mechanism that you're talking about. And I think everything we've been talking about is what makes our country so great. It's the independence to be a free thinker. You don't have to go along with the herd. You can think of the solution, not the problem. Figure out the solution.
You went from a crack in the door to going for the National Monument. That's pretty hilarious.
Well, it was. It was.
I love it. You're like, hey, there's a little crack in the door. I think I'm going to go big.
Yeah. Well, it was because it was like I had to win a competition with 360 global teams. And so it was like this little crack. There was like, you gotta get through here. And then it was like we bust the door down. We open the door, we open it. And then there's like all this light flooding through. It is like, because in the beginning, it's not like a big, like, you didn't win the lottery. You got to work to win the lottery. It's like thousands of steps to get there. That crack in the door, the little light shining through is what I saw. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this. Yeah, I know, 60 feet, 38 figures, but.
Well, we have seen what you've described in the art world. I see that taking place in the economics world, that the subtle message that's being told is that capitalism is bad and socialism is the solution. And again, it's a subtle thing that gets to that point. But in the midst of the socialized part of Washington, D.C., they had to use a capitalist principle to pick which one's going to be the Memorial. They had to pick one of 360 plus people, and the competition, the drive, the doing the best is really the core of capitalism and at the core of socialism. It's nobody matters. We're all the same. Everybody does the same, and there's no greater personality. And so I love the idea that in the midst of all that in DC, that you elevated, took your God-given skill and put it on display across from the White House.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's a very scary thing to me, this lack of looking at history. And socialism is just another word for communism. It's just prettied up. And it's been said many times that communism is a very dirty word in our country. So, okay, let's change the words and we can fool all these people. I come from a very rebellious era. Do you know that the music that defined my generation? I'm not making a pun here, like The Who, My Generation. Or another song that they sang was, I Won't Get Fooled Again. You guys, these young people, I'm telling you, you're being fooled. You're being promised a bunch of lies that will actually disempower you. And sure, it looks like a bandage to all your problems right now. And it's this utopia, but it doesn't exist externally to books in colleges by professors that have never done anything in the external world. They are working from a point of view that's idea-based in a classroom, and the only reason they can continue down that road is because they get a paycheck. It's called tenure track. That means that they don't have to perform. So if you were an engineer and you built a bridge that failed, you're going to get deep duty. But if you have an idea that does not perform, nothing happens to you. Nothing. There's nobody coming down and suing you and bringing you to jail. No, nothing. And that's the problem. These ideas suck, and they need to be burned before our country goes down.
Sabin, you might be encouraged to know that our youngest of four boys, he listens to stuff like Jimi Hendrix and The Who.
Good. I love it.
That's like on his playlist. And so the young kids are going to be okay.
Yeah.
There's a great movie. Well, I think it's a great movie from what I hear. I haven't seen it yet, but Young Washington comes out today. And I am really looking forward to taking my family to see this. You keep using the word rebellion, and I think Washington, he was a rebel, and he did things differently. And one of the things I like about him as a capitalist is he owned a whole bunch of land, and he could have just gone off and done the land thing with his wife, but he decided to give back, and that's the charge to the capitalist today: is, hey, what's on your mind? Where can you be creative with the wealth and treasure that you have, and what does that look like on an individual basis? And that's where things can get pretty exciting. That might mean just taking family out to dinner, taking a friend out to dinner, giving somebody a really good tip. But being a capitalist has a lot of awesome opportunities on the give back side.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I want to close with a couple things. One, Sabin, tell me about Tracy's documentary. Is that out and available?
Tracy's my wife. She filmed every day for 9 years as we made the World War I Memorial. The movie is heroic, the making of the World War I Memorial. And Tracy's looking for distribution right now.
Okay.
It's going to be coming out very shortly. I would say by fall, by the end of the year, we'll have distribution, and this will go national and global. It's not a talking heads movie. It's the actual drama that happened in the studio with the making of it. And it's not boring.
It's going to be real, I think.
Yeah, very much. Very much.
Final question. So the Grand Liberty Arch is set to be displayed in Salt Lake City. Tell us high level about the Grand Liberty Arch and the passageway to a greater future is what I envision it is.
Yeah, exactly. I finished the World War I memorial, and I wanted to continue on the path of going bigger always, being my best version. So nobody commissioned me. Um, there's no governing body. And so I had a message that I should make something for my country to celebrate the 250th. Tracy and I got in a Sprinter van back in 2025 in March and drove to Utah. And that was about, a year and a half ago. And I was awarded land up at the Capitol, Utah State Capitol, a 1.37 acre site for a park. And now we will begin raising the funds for this monument. I have made a 6-foot model of it, which will be unveiled on Monday, July 6th at 5:30 under the Capitol Dome at the Rotunda. The arch is the history. It's a philosophy of our history of our country. And it's all these stories that speak of the courage of these men and women that have stepped into the void, driven by faith to achieve their best version. And that it's very much a sculpture of pride in country, self-responsibility, agency, and manifesting your vision. And it's the biggest figurative monument that our country's ever seen. It's 56 figures and larger than life, going out all the way up to 10 and a half feet, and 60 feet wide and 36 feet high, and an arch. It's a paradigm for a shift to redefine who we are in positive terms.
I thought I heard you say that, so 56 figures, and I thought in something I listened to that you spend 650 hours per figure. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think actually we did some math, and with 5 sculptors, we're looking at 1,000 hours per figure on the reliefs because they're bigger, and close to 2,000 hours on the figures on top of the arch. So so this is going to take a lot. This is going to take a lot.
Well, Sabin, thanks for your time. Thanks for your love for our country and the people, and just thanks for your friendship. I really appreciate it.
I do too. Thank you too, Keith and Doug, for having me on and having this moment to share with you on something that is so valuable. I really would like other people to have this opportunity to look at how amazing and lucky we are to have what we have.
Well, thank you very much.